So first of all, I would like to dive deep into the basics of what most people want to understand. So this goes back to a story that I listened to almost 10 to 12 years back, where the story goes like this. There are two sons, son A and son B, and both of them, they had an alcoholic father. And the son A grew up to become a very, very successful person, whereas the son B went up to become an alcoholic himself. Upon asking the question, what is the reason for how you are right now? Both of them gave the same answer: because of my dad.
Of course.
Which means both of them grew up in a very similar environment, but one person went out to become really successful and the other person did not. So, my question is, what truly determines the subconscious beliefs that we have depending on the external circumstance? Because in this case, the external circumstance was pretty much the same for both of them. So, what truly determines that?
Your brain doesn't know what is real or what is external. If you're watching a terrifying film on television, your brain can't, is that real, or are you really experiencing it on the TV screen? The brain can't tell the difference. So with a situation such as an alcoholic father, a mentally ill mother, a neglectful childhood, it's never what happens, it's how you feel about what happens.
Right.
Events affect you, but what really, really, really affects you is the meaning you make of that event. And those two boys made a different meaning. You know, when I was growing up, I had a very, very academic, brilliant father and a beautiful mother. And I don't know why they got married. They had nothing in common. And they were very, very unhappy. And I would watch this scene play out all the time. My mother would cry, my father would go to work. My mother would cry, my father would go to work. And I remember looking and thinking, oh, so what you have to do is you must have a fantastic job that fulfills you and then it doesn't hurt. My sisters, I looked at it and thought, oh, what you must do is marry someone who loves you more than you love them, and then never pick up their briefcase and go to it. My brother looked at it and said, oh, never marry someone beautiful. This just doesn't work. So we were all saw exactly the same scene, and two unhappy parents, one very academic, one very beautiful, shouldn't have got married. But each three of us made a different meaning of it. It's the meaning you make of an event that impacts you. I'll give you another example. One of my clients told me that she found out, one of her aunties told her when she was 18 that her parents had tried to terminate her.
Oh, okay.
And she was devastated. She said, well, that's it, you know. I mean, how can I be, and my own parents tried to kill me. How could I be anything but someone else? Well, I heard the same story and thought, wow, it must be amazing. If they tried to terminate me and they didn't succeed, I must be destined for greatness.
Right.
So we got two stories identical. I found out my parents tried to abort me, and one said, well, that's it for me then. I wasn't even wanted. The other said, I must be meant for greatness because I got here despite all of that.
Right.
So it's never what happened. It's how you feel about it, the meaning you make of it. And the great news is you can go back and change that meaning at any time.
Right.
You can go back and make something different of it at any time at all. If you look at someone like Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer, they came from terrible beginnings, and yet they made something amazing of it.
Yeah. So our external reality is literally a reflection of what's going on the inside.
Yeah.
So when you actually spoke about these examples, it reminds me of, so I used to have this major abandonment issue for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
So all the partners that I used to attract were the kind of partners who'd kind of abandon me. So when I did a hypnotherapy process, when I went back in hypnosis, I got to figure out something very weird and interesting. The abandonment issue that I had was not mine. It was actually my mother's. My mom had me because she did not want to be abandoned by my father.
Okay.
So it was in the womb that I absorbed that.
Of course.
So if belief systems are something that we develop between the age of 0 to 7, is there also a possibility that goes back before we are born and past lifetimes?
I mean, yes, we can look at past lifetimes, and for some people that happens, but really better to focus on this lifetime.
Right.
You know, we learn what we live.
Right.
What happens before the age of 7 will influence us greatly. But the great thing is that you can reframe anything at all. You know, Nigella Lawson says, and I loved, she said, I've seen people ruined by a happy childhood. For them, nothing is ever going to be as good. For me, it was so bad. Nothing can ever be as bad again. You see, that's a great reframe.
Right.
If you have an amazing, loving, wonderful childhood, which we all want and we all should have, sometimes it's like, wow, nothing's ever going to meet up to that. If it's really bad, you think, gosh, it can just get better. Everything can get better. So everything does go back. And there's no doubt that children who are raised without love, without care, without kindness become very damaged, like poking holes in that child. It's very damaging. But can you go back and undo that damage? Yes, you can. You can go back, and I do a lot of stuff called upgrading the child, where you go back and you find that abandoned child. I was doing it last night online for 5,000 people, no, 7,000 people actually. You go back and you find that child, and you make sense of it. So let's imagine your parents were 17 when they had you, or 18. You weren't gifted with emotionally mature parents. They were growing up next to you. They weren't mature enough to raise you.
Right.
But eventually they do grow up and you think, oh, now my parents are great. I needed that when I was 17, when I was a kid and they were 17. We don't always get what we want. We very often don't. But it's never too late ever to go back, make sense of it and change it. My parents weren't great. Today I can parent myself. Today I can become a loving parent to myself. And I can give myself everything I need, because I talk a lot in therapy about the unmet needs of children.
Yeah.
Children's needs are very simple. A child needs to be loved, safe, connected, significant. They need to be certain they matter. And when I'm doing these talks with 7,000 people, I'll put your hand up if you didn't feel, almost all of them put their hand up. However, while it is absolutely your parents' job to meet these needs,
Right.
once you get into your 20s and they haven't, it's now your job.
Yeah.
And the great news is you can do that. Okay, it's my job now to make myself feel safe, loved, connected, significant, to know I matter. So you spend a bit of time saying it. I matter, I'm lovable, I'm safe to express myself. I do matter. I'm here for a reason. I have something to offer the world. You say it, state it, affirm it, embody it. Just like putting olive oil on warm bread, it has to sink in. Bread can't reject warm olive oil, but also can't reject hairspray or deodorant or eye drops. They all go in, toxic or healthy,
Right.
as it is with thoughts. So when you can start to change this thinking and say, you know, I'm going to meet my needs. The word responsibility means an ability to respond. We have unmet needs. I had many, but I realized it's no one else. As an adult, it is no one else's job to turn up and meet those needs. It's my job.
Right.
And I can do it really well.
Right.